So today I'm talking to Harry Green. Harry, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Excellent stuff. Good. Yeah. Thanks for joining me. Cool. So look, I've got a traditional first question. It's what do you do?
Bit of everything. I'm a musician. I own a recording studio and a record label. Go to college. Yeah.
Cool stuff. And there are other things, obviously, in your armoury, which will come out, I'm sure, as we chat. So, with the sort of music then, because obviously you've got a whole bunch of stuff you just sort of rattled off there. I mean, how early on were you involved in music? What was your interest in music?
I used to go to church and watch the band there. I saw the drummer. Paul West.
Paul West, indeed.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and my dad introduced me, and then had drumming lessons since I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5, or I don't know an exact number. But
what, with Paul?
Yeah, with Paul.
Wonderful.
So me and Paul are quite good friends. He's taught me everything I know about music, really. Recording wise, drumming wise. Yeah, that's how I learned how to play drums. Then it just escalated from there.
Yeah. So that's early on. So what age did you say you were when you started playing drums?
I was about 4 or 5.
Oh wow, crikey!
Yeah.
So that's an early age to play anything, really. I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued because it's difficult teaching a 4-year-old kid to play guitar.
Well, it took Paul a long time, right? Because I was, got distracted easily. But yeah, no, it went from one lesson every week, and then as I got older, it just started to die down, and there was no lessons in the end. And but yeah, he taught me everything, like recording wise.
See, I'm really interested. That's probably where I've seen you actually, because I got a feeling that you did some recording work when I was doing something. You came in and helped out. I got a feeling that's what it was. Now, I'm interested by this because the whole point about this podcast really is about creativity, right? But it's all about just people telling their stories, because things sort of come out of that storytelling that are sometimes you don't realise it, and sometimes I don't realise it at the time. It's only when I listen back to it I think, oh, that's a really interesting point. So the thing is, if you start that early in your life playing, at first it seems like, oh, it's really distracted and everything. However, I think, or maybe, I don't know whether you feel this, it sort of puts something in really sort of at a fundamental level. And it may not be that you were, on paper you were learning at 4, but you were learning at 4, but because you were just ingesting all that information, right? How much do you think that's the case? That, being at that early age, it sort of seeps in.
Well, when you're young, you're learning anyway. Like everything you're doing is learning.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I did. I could see a massive improvement over like a 2-year span of me learning.
Yeah.
Even though to other people it might have sounded like it's just a random person on a drum kit that doesn't play drums.
Yeah, I don't know. But does it matter? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't.
No, I don't think. No. Cool.
I'm happy where I am now. I'm always trying to learn more and learn how to play differently, different techniques and everything. But but back then it was. I can't really remember, to be fair to you.
No. I mean, that's so young, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So obviously, if Paul's teaching you music stuff, and it's not just drums, obviously, because Paul plays umpteen different things. So you obviously you play guitar, don't you?
No, so how it happened was I was playing drums, doing my drumming lessons, and then Paul would bring out a bass.
Yeah.
And then he would start playing bass, and I'll be playing drums, and we would just have a jam. And I was like, I like playing bass. I want to learn how to play bass. He taught me a little bit. And then it moved on to cajon lessons, which is...
Oh, right, yeah.
And then from there, it was just literally spending time in the studio.
Yeah.
I don't know. Quite often, like shadowing.
Yeah.
Learning how he does everything. How to tidy up cables, how to clean them, health and safety, all of this. And
That's great training, isn't it? Don't you think? Don't you think that's a great way to learn?
Yeah,
it's just like you know. I mean, you see, the problem is, and I sort of wrestle with this a lot because obviously I teach a lot of people, but really the best way is just like for people sort of hanging around and being involved. And I'll tell you something. I've not mentioned this on the podcast at all, actually. I've interviewed a number of people from Greece, and the Greeks are brilliant musicians. And when I went over there to do sort of like guitar exams, sort of over in Athens, right? You'd be in this like a centre, which was like I think they called it like a conservatoire. It was just a place where So you do a load of exams on the Wednesday or something. You'd see some guy, they're coming sitting or whatever, and they do their exam, they sort of disappear. And then the next day, you went to another place, and then the person you did examine before was in this venue as well, like sort of hanging around. That's a bit strange. And I noticed this throughout the week, and I mentioned it to somebody, and they said, "Well, what happens is, you see, is that when we do lessons, it's typical Greek style, right? So if somebody's got a lesson at 2 o'clock or 12 o'clock or something, they'll turn up at 10 o'clock in the morning and just hang out. And they'll have, they'll sit around, have a coffee, and play a bit of guitar. Their mates are all hanging around, and then, they get around and maybe they have their lesson then or maybe earlier. It's all very sort of laid back. And he said, so what happens here is, when we've got like the exams, he said that, this chap, whoever his name was, he had his lesson, he had his exam on Wednesday, but his mate was having an exam on the Thursday, so he just sort of turned up and hung out with him. I thought, that's so cool. So that sort of thing of just being around music all the time, instead of just turning up and doing your hour or half hour and then clearing off, I think it's just such a great way of learning. Because a lot of stuff like that you learn in those odd moments, didn't you? If you were shadowing Paul doing stuff, you might notice him do something.
I've learned more like that,
yes,
just watching him do what he does.
Yeah.
I find music very healing, very, very. I can escape with music. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
I can just leave a room without leaving a room if I listen to some music or play some music. That's me gone. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
When I'm listening to, I don't know, say he's mixing a track that he's recorded beforehand, and I'm literally just sat there and listening. I'll just escape. I kind of love that. And then obviously, it got more and more and more. They were doing gigs and then setting up, packing down, but also listening to the music in between. I can say that before I was very stuck on certain genres.
Oh, okay.
And now I'm more open, like.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? Like, there's lots of genres that I look at now that I thought I would never listen to ever.
Yeah. I definitely think that is that definitely happens with musicians. You know, the more you play, the more you get interested in things that lay outside of your original interests. I heard an explanation of that, and it was saying that, you know, there's a sort of a percentage when you listen to something, it needs to be familiar enough, right? But there needs to be a sort of a percentage of that needs to be unexpected, because otherwise it's just boring, right?
Yeah.
So the more that you're involved with music, the more of your ability to predict a piece of music increases, you know, as a musician. So then you start to branch out listening to different styles of music, because you want that, you know, excitement and interest and, you know, unfamiliarity in things, you know. And I think that's absolutely true, you know, because when you meet really good players and everything, they're listening to everything. They don't just listen to a little pocket of, you know, one genre or something. So yeah, so you're saying that doing stuff with Paul, you know, really sort of branches you out. Yeah. So how long will you sort of, are you still sort of doing stuff with Paul now? Or you?
Yeah, well, it's a bit more busy now. Paul's doing very well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to build my own business. I see him like probably once every couple of months or whatever. But I was seeing him every week when I was little. Every week I'd go over to new ice cream shops, the old shops. That's where he had his little studio set up before then.
Yeah.
And but now
because it was an interesting little setup he had there. I thought it was really quite amazing. So okay, so you mentioned a whole bunch of things at the very beginning. You suggested a record label, and you know, and that's like okay, what's this all about? So what have you done with that then? How did you start?
Well,
sort of, you know.
Well, as I said, sitting with Paul, doing that, and then I was like, that's what I want to do with my life. So I started off with a little computer and a little interface. Started recording there, and then I stole my mum and dad's cupboard next door, turned it into a vocal booth. Had lots of people coming there. Well, I felt sorry for me. I think it was not. It was one of those, but it's gone from that, and then I moved quite a few times, and then it went from that to now I've got clients, I've got people under my label. I'm doing quite. I feel like I'm doing quite well.
Yeah. So no, honestly, that's brilliant. So with the thing about the label, then, so would you? Because that's, you know, obviously people record and stuff like that, and don't take that step of thinking, oh, okay, do my own thing. You know? So was there something that made you go like, oh, that's what I need to do
now? Not necessarily. It started off with recording, and then I was like, what else? I feel like, what else can I do that like can facilitate, like I can facilitate the studio as well as build my own business up.
Yeah.
So I started recording with a lot of artists. And I just chose the ones that I feel had a lot of potential. So, for example, I recorded a song with one of my clients like last month or whatever. That's out on the 1st of April. And then I got one of my other clients to jump on the same song. And so it's like a little mash-up kind of thing.
Right.
But that's out next month, the 1st of May. So I'm trying to get them all integrated and involved. And
I like that. I like that idea. Yeah, that's really cool. Because a lot of the people that I'm teaching at the moment, you know, I sort of to think about what the musical environment is now and how it's changed rapidly, you know, and in a sort of strange sort of way, you know, what we've experienced and what we sort of know as, you know, a music industry may have just been a blip, you know, because before all of that, the ability to record and what have you, there was obviously always musicians, but they were obviously doing something. They were doing something different, you know. And I was sort of looking at this and thinking, well, it is problematic. You know, you can't just record a CD and then sell a load of them and make a load of money. It's just doesn't quite work like that anymore. So, what's your sort of take on that? You know, because at the moment, I'm just sort of saying that people, you know, they obviously need to be more entrepreneurial, which obviously you are, because you're thinking outside the box all the time, really, aren't you? What's your sort of take on that with things? You know, what's your angle?
Well, at first I thought that recording a song or recording a track or recording an album was literally, you had to have a song ready, go in there, record it, and then that's it. You release it, done. That's not the case.
No.
you have to write it.
It's not, is it? Yeah, absolutely.
You have to like check if everything is okay, like work, like lyrics, notes and chords, and make sure everything fits. And, copyright as well. Like so.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it sounds too familiar to another song, you can't really use it. And then you record it, and then you have to send it off for mixing or mix it yourself, and then send it off for mastering after that. And then once you get that back, you have to do an album cover, distribute it, promote it.
So so distribution and promotion, right? Because that is something where a lot of musicians fall down, because they've done the work, they've recorded the thing, and it's almost like, oh, done. It's actually like, no, we've just started, you know. So what's your sort of way of dealing with that, with promotion and stuff?
I need to improve. I'm not going to lie to you. I need to improve.
It was a difficult one, this, and this is what I think is changing. This is exactly what I think.
Social media has changed everything, really. Right, instead of giving out CDs, you've got this barcode now that you just scan with your phone, and you've got whatever. Like this, I feel it's changing. Some things for the good, some things for the bad.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the point is, what I'm sort of, and I'm kind of like, what I think is important is that what's happening grassroots-wise, you know, like people are doing the stuff, you know, for themselves. They're going in, they're paying for the studio, they're paying for everything, you know, they're paying for the production of the CD and all the rest of it. That grassroots thing is really more. It needs to be more, how can I put this, versatile than what's going on with major labels, right?
Yeah.
And the major label thing may be a bit of an illusion, because it's what's going on the grassroots is changing a lot. So you're saying about social media. I think it's quite interesting what's going on there, because obviously a lot of social media stuff is about, you know, you can put something up for about 20 seconds or something, you know, just to, you know, so you see a lot of that sort of thing where somebody's playing a bit of frantic guitar for 20 seconds, and then it's, you know, is that an artistic content? But it's that sort of thing about how do you get people to engage with the music, you know, about gigs and all the rest of it, because I can see that you can draw people in and then get them to come and see you play and all the rest of it. And that, from that point of view, social media can be really, really powerful. But I'm not sure about other, like you're saying, other aspects of it are tricky, aren't they? Because it's like it saturates, because everybody could do it, the whole environment is saturated with possible musicians and all the rest of it. Difficult to get that uniqueness going. So, that's the sort of thing I'm thinking. So when you've got these tracks coming out, what are people doing? Are they gigging the
So the good thing about social media is you could, if you have a good enough song and people like it, it can blow up overnight.
Yes, it could do.
Overnight. And you can reach a wider audience with social media compared to if it was just you and your guitar on the road. Like, do you know what I mean? That's what I like about it, because if you're consistent, say TikTok, for example, that's very good for musicians to get their music out, because they record little snippets of their song. Either that's them just vibing in the car listening to their song, or getting their mum's reaction to the song they wrote about her. Do you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that.
Yeah. Something
people
engages
love that.
people. Yeah,
people love that. So if you've got a couple of them or anything like that, then it'll...
See, that's a good thing what you said there, because I just pick you up on a couple of these things. It's about that sort of emotional engagement to something.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're saying, the girlfriend's reaction to the song that you've written for her, or your mum's reaction to the song that's written for her, or you doing something while your song's playing. It's not just about the song. It's about that emotional engagement. And I think that's something which people find actually quite tricky to deal with, because it is a bit of a mind shift, isn't it? Instead of it being like we're just going out and playing a song, it's about how people engage with that song. And you're sort of instructing them in a strange sort of way about how that song engages. So that's an interesting... I think that's something that people actually do miss with social media is how it functions, from that point of view. How you get a lot of traction on things.
So I wrote a song for my daughter, Layla's song. Obviously, she passed away in 2021. And so I wrote a song called Layla's Song. And I wanted to keep it to myself. I wanted to just my song to her, yeah?
Yeah.
And then I showed a couple of families that have been through the same thing.
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, this has helped me." And
yes. Yeah.
So I felt like the best thing to do was to upload it, and it might have helped other families. Which it has. It has helped other families. It's made me connect as well with other other dads that have gone through the same thing.
Yeah.
And so bits like that. It's
Well, the thing is, Harry, what you're talking about there, this is a brilliant example. And I'm sorry, it's very sad to experience that, but I think actually we all experience something at some point in our life. Not necessarily that experience, but there are other experiences which, you're sort of happily going along, and then life turns up. But that's what I was sort of getting at about what music was about before this, our concept about what it was to be a musician. Because I think it's more of that. It's more about what the artist did within a community because of events like that, because of loss, grief, happiness, celebration. And that sort of thing connects musicians to people and people to musicians and makes people into musicians as well,
It's there's always going to be people that relate to whatever the song's about, even though it's... Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get that. Yeah, I do.
Be...
Yeah, and particularly if it's about something that's got real, it's real life, a real life experience. I think that's really cool. That's really amazing. So, that's an amazing point, actually, Harry. So let's go back to the stuff about, because you got your record label. I think it's really good. So, but of course you also play and sing anyway, don't you? So did you get into that quite early on? Because Just
Not
sort of playing?
really. Not really. I never sung until I was like probably about 14, 15. Or maybe.
Oh, that's,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, even then, it's taken me a while to build my voice up. If you look at videos from then compared to now, you'd be like, oh, okay. And but yeah, I learned ukulele off YouTube. Just literally.
yeah.
I said,
Cool.
what? I typed in, what's the easiest instrument to play? And it came up with ukulele. So I just started playing that. And but now I'm moving on to other things, or like piano and guitar, and yeah, trying to do as much as I can to build my own songs. So when I'm sat in my studio trying to write my music, instead of me going, oh, I need a pianist to come in, I can try and do something myself as a demo, or to try and do it for the final track.
Yeah. But I mean, you play anyway, don't you? Live, because
Yeah.
And you've got a few people, because you're obviously still involved with a group of people, because obviously I got through Joe Marcy. But you've got quite a good network of people that you sort of gig with them.
Yeah. So obviously, I think most of the people that I know musically in Kent, it started off with Paul, then going on to like Steve Hewitt, and then open mics, and then finding other people like that, networking really.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I've just kept building that.
Yeah.
Now I go to a college called Super Jam. I don't know if you've heard it.
Okay.
Do you know Black Deer Festival?
Yeah.
Wells? So they put that on.
Yeah. So where are they based, Super Jam?
Swanley. But they've got 3 bases. So one's in Swanley, one's in Brighton, and one's in Canterbury. And it's just music college. So music business, music production, everything. But they've got loads of contacts. So 2 years ago, maybe 3, went backstage at Britain's Got Talent, met through Abby Doyle. Abby Doyle is Simon Cowell's PA. She's quite good friends with the college. Quite a few people are coming. Do you know the Wandering Hearts?
Yeah.
So they come in every year, once a year. We've had sales manager, people like that you can work with.
Yeah.
And
So that's, because that was always the thing that struck me about certain places, like Brit School, for instance, as an example. It's about contacts, really. And of course, if you're meeting people like that, okay. It's always possible to meet people by just associating, and it's just, was it 6 degrees of separation thing? The person that somebody knows the person who knows the person that you want to get to. But with the college situation, I think that's really what it's about, so much more than necessarily what you technically learn, if you get what I mean. That thing of making those connections is really good. So that's amazing, because I've heard of them, but I didn't know actually where they were based.
But
so how does it work? Because it's not like a formal college situation, presumably, is it?
It's Ofsted are involved, so it's an actual college.
Oh, okay, but it's not like, no. What I meant by that is that often a lot of colleges are like, there is some. Actually, it's not strictly true this, but there's some sort of university behind it somehow, or some link with something.
No, so the owners of the college, Dave and Nick, they're lovely. They've got a TV show in Brazil called Breakout Brazil. That's what they do. And then they wanted to build somewhere that was that would accept everyone. Everyone. So anyone that has a passion for music, they will accept them. Like they want to help.
Well, that's good, because that's an interesting point, because that's one of the problems with getting into some of these colleges like Bristol, because there's a limit, and then they start doing things like you've got to be within the catchment area, and there's so many people can get into this from outside the catchment area, and then you end up with this sort of thing where it I won't say it becomes elitist, but unless you're living right by the place, you can't get in. But I mean, that's really good that they'll accept it.
They're very they as I said, they're very accepting, and they understand special needs. They understand how music can change someone's not behaviour, but mood.
Yes.
In less than a couple of minutes.
Yes.
They help build, so they get you in contact with all these contacts that they've got. So Black Deer, we've got our own stage, and all the students from our college, they're on sound, and they're playing as well as taking pictures and everything music media. That's what they're on.
Yeah, that's good. So for the people who don't know, the Black Deer Festival is something that happens in sort of near Tunbridge Wells, isn't it? In Kent, and that's quite an amazing thing, because it is in a sort of a deer park, more or less, isn't it? It's on like this massive estate, and how many years has that been going on about?
Since 2018, I think.
Yeah.
17, 18.
Yeah, because I was going to say they had a couple of years, didn't they? 2 or 3 years before COVID, didn't they? So
yeah. They've I think they started off doing gigs at like the Forum and stuff, and they got in contact with other people to put this on. And it's a good festival. It's all Americana country.
Yeah. That's right. That's its sort of angle, isn't it? Which is really really interesting. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good stuff. So, what do you? Because obviously, we mentioned that you're out singing, playing, and you mentioned Steve Hewitt. Do you do a lot of stuff with Steve?
Steve's a good friend of mine. I go to his gigs, love his music. Like that's how it started. Paul played one of his songs it was called Love Songs. It's my favourite song that Steve's written, and it's even in my set list. I'll cover it every time.
Yes, I saw that you'd actually covered the song by him.
Yeah. So that's what. Yes, Steve's coming to record with me, I think. Soon.
Cool.
Yeah, it's good friends.
Yeah. He's got a great voice, Steve. Yeah. So what are you sort of working on particularly at the moment then? What's your plans for the future then, Harry?
At the minute, I'm working on an album for myself. Hopefully that will be released towards summertime.
Yeah.
Plans for the future. I know it might sound silly, like a big idea, but this is what I want to do. I want to get a big double-decker bus. I want to turn the top deck into like a live room with the drum kit, guitars, everything, amps, and then the bottom into a control room. And then you wanted to record, but you couldn't get to a studio. I'd come pull up.
Okay.
Record what you need to go.
Yeah, so it's a mobile, basically.
Yeah,
a mobile studio. Yeah. As in the days of the Rolling Stones mobile. Yeah, but with a little bit more. That's really cool. Now, I think it's a brilliant idea. I've not, because it's also got that sort of thing of like the Magic Bus type thing from the 1960s, isn't it?
Yeah.
What they called, I can't think of the name. Yeah, but they were the merry pranksters, I think it was, that were on the bus. So that's all linked into Grateful Dead and all that sort of crowd, I think. Ooh, brilliant. Okay, that's such a cool idea, really.
Yeah.
So you got some great ideas. Now, you didn't mention your card tricks and all that stuff.
I'm a magician. I've been doing that since I was younger. Than my dad used to be a magician. Used to do birthday parties, weddings, and stuff.
Yeah,
I'd watch him and then figure out how to do it, or he would tell me how to do it, and then I would be able to do it to someone else.
Yeah.
I started taking his tricks into school. Me and Paul actually wrote a song about the whole thing about magic, about how I got into it, how.
Brilliant! It's brilliant. I love this idea of sleight of hand, because in actual fact, I think music is that, isn't it? It's actually, it totally is sleight of hand. It's like you do things, and sometimes it's like, well, this is the simplest idea type of thing, but it sounds really complex type of thing, you know. That sort of being able to distract and mislead people.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a.
I've never heard that before, but now I see it.
Yeah, but it sort of is, isn't it? Because if you think of like great lyrics catch you out. If you sort of, I mean, you know, it takes you somewhere, and then suddenly you realise, oh, hang on, what happened? You know? And it is that sort of you're misguiding people. And jokes are like that as well, of course, aren't they? You take somebody down one path, and then when the punchline comes along, you realise, you realise it's something else. So I'm quite intrigued by that type of thing, that these sort of undercurrents that go on in thinking, where you sort of go, well, you know, that is actually the same sort of thing that's going on here and over here, because it's not necessarily about magic tricks or music. It's what's going on in our ability to perceive the world and make sense of the world, and then suddenly it catches you out.
If I did a trick in front of you here, that would be different to you stood behind me seeing the same trick.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, totally. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's the context then, which is another thing, isn't it, about music? It's contextual. It's like when you play songs in a particular place, they'll have a different resonance to whether you play them somewhere else, or whether somebody's listening at home, whatever. You know. Yeah. And I think that's something that's an interesting thing as a musician. How you sort of see the world and and everything. You know, it's cool, brilliant stuff. Okay, so that's really cool, mate. So I sort of interrupted you slightly because I started asking you about your magic tricks and stuff.
That's all right.
So what else have you got then? Just before we sort of wrap up at the moment, what you see? What's absolutely the latest thing that you're working with?
Yeah, well.
And you're going to get this bus, which is the other thing that you were talking about.
Yeah. Well, I need some money for that. But at the minute,
you never know.
Yeah, I'm doing I've never done drum and bass. But one of my old friends came into the studio and said, "This is what I've got, and this is how I want to do it." I was like, "Okay, we can try." And it's turned into a really good song. That's literally coming out tomorrow. Yeah.
Crikey! Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing.
So where's your studio space then?
Maidstone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a home studio, but
but come on,
it's proper.
Yeah. I mean, some of the this is one of the things that some of those really amazing recordings that were even done back in the sort of 80s and stuff. A lot of them were home studios.
Yeah.
Sort of classic albums. You think, when you find out where they were recorded, but even some of those classic recording studios like Muscle Shoals, they were okay. It wasn't a home studio, but it was just nothing special.
Yeah, a room.
Just a room in an old garage type of thing. So
it's all down to the engineer, isn't it? Really,
it is.
You could stick a really, really good engineer in with a rubbish computer and a decent pair of headphones and tell him to mix a song and he'd be able to do it. And then tell someone that's not as experienced to do the same thing. It'll be, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. But that's always been the way. I think it's always been the case that. But we've got this sort of idea about what it is that you need to create things. I mean, this is a different sort of thing, but podcasting, right? So I've been doing this now for about 4 or 5 years, and my main reason for doing this is I'm just interested in talking to people, But I get a lot of people sort of come to me. They want to sort of start podcasting. They their first thing is about the gear, and it's like, well, I'm only doing this off my iPad. But people are thinking about buying expensive mics and stuff, and it's like, well, you can do that, but actually, what you really need is a good conversation. Or you need a really good idea. And then an interesting way of presenting things. And then if it starts to take shape and then you think, I'm going to go and splash out on a really nice microphone or get some really good editing gear and all the rest of it, great. Yeah. But it's just that, people don't see that that's the way forward. I've known people who used to record with Joe Meek back in the 60s. And that was just his front room. And his bathroom.
Yeah. It's
right?
the same.
Totally. And it was just like, yeah.
Photographers now just use an iPhone. But you get the same, well, not the same, but you get decent photos.
Well, look at people who are now doing films.
Yeah.
On
just
iPhones.
Yeah.
And it's been doing that for a few years. So the phones they were using were not anywhere near as good as people have got now. So a lot of like 3-4 years ago, people were using iPhones to do films for documentaries and stuff like that. Well, those phones, as I say, they're not catching what's out there.
Everything's now.
Yeah, I think the thing is that, and I think this has come out with your conversation, it's all about, having ideas, coming up with an interesting way of doing things and thinking, I could do that, and, just having a go. I think it's really good, really interesting stuff. Awesome stuff, Harry. Right, okay, so that was a brilliant chat, mate. Really good. And good to see you again.
And you.
And that was a few years ago when you...
Yeah.
And it was one of my probably crazy projects I was doing with Paul, actually, so...
I can't remember. There's been so many.
No, yeah. No, it was yeah. That's awesome, mate.
Well, thank you for having me.
No, that was a pleasure. It was really good, and you come up with some really amazing points there, actually. And I wish you all the best for what you're doing. All right, mate. It's cool.
All right, thank you.
See you soon.
See you in a bit.